Welcome back to the show, folks. Welcome to the Jack Christie Show, and this episode we are taking it much more serious now on much more new content, and that is the Ryder Cup. As anybody knows me, Ryder Cup or anything golf I'm a big fan of, and the Ryder Cup was at the weekend there, and there's a lot of sort of debriefing and reflection. So if you're a golf fan, lock in. If you're not a golf fan, this probably isn't for you, but we're testing the waters nonetheless. There's been a lot of fallout from the weekend, with the fans on the American side giving us abuse, particularly sort of our main player, Rory McIlroy. There's been a few things said both online from various ex-players such as Phil Mickelson. We've had the PGA of America coming out with some strange comments. But we're going to start off with just the conclusion of the fact that we won 15-13. Now, I saw Big Bob McIntyre on the podium with his big Scotland flag, and it gave me an excuse to find my one. And since I am still teaching, I've been showcasing this one throughout the whole week while singing along He's in Your Head. He's in your head, he's in your head, Rory, 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 hey, hey. And having small children look at me in complete bemusement and no idea what they're doing. So I took in my little Scottish flag for them, and they were like, Mr. Christie, why have you got a flag? And I was like, that's the incorrect question, my guys. The correct question would be, why has Mr. Christie got two flags of Scotland? And the answer to that question is, I have not got a Scooby as to why I have got two flags, albeit they are phenomenal in the fact of that. And as you know, I'm a bit of a proud Scotsman, so. Yeah, so we won 15-13. We dominated the first 2 days, didn't we? It was absolutely class. Keeping the New York fans at bay to a whole extent with our playing. Big shout out to Justin Rose, who was absolutely phenomenal throughout the Friday and the Saturday, to be honest. But big outstanding players: Rory, John, Tyrrell, Tommy. But Rosie, it felt like he couldn't miss a putt at all in the first 2 days. He was just absolutely electric, and that walk in on the Saturday afternoon, just thank you very much, Rosie. Big Bob, obviously, super happy for him. And yeah, so first 2 days were quality. Sunday, obviously, it was a bit of a back to the rafters. But you know what the biggest thing is that I don't feel was commented on throughout all the major correspondence and news media is the fact that how grueling it is for two days to go 36 holes on both days. Like, if you were Rory or John, you must be absolutely goosed come the Sunday. Because, yeah, I would struggle doing 36 these days and then trying to do another 36 the next day. And then you add on top the fact that they're doing over probably like 8,000 yards in terms of walking between the greens and then round the ropes and everything. Fans, all the intensity and the pressure was coming towards Rory, and particularly, no wonder he was drained. And yeah, to come out on the Sunday, I actually saw a few comments of him talking about he was actually knackered to come the Sunday, and I think both Scotty and Rory in their singles match, you could see on their faces just absolutely drained. So yeah, obviously we are super happy with the fact that Russell Henley did not put that putt in, and Big Shane put in that putt to take the Ryder Cup home, quite literally to Ireland, where the next one is going to be in 2027 at Adair Manor. So yeah, we're going to call a few things. Yeah, 15-13. I've been waiting for the news article such as back to black at Bethpage. I do quite like that. Because obviously we had Miracle at Medina, or Miracle in Medina, I should say. But there hasn't been brilliance at Bethpage. It doesn't really have that same ring to it. But I do like back to black at Bethpage. A little nod to the fact it was the black course. So yeah, let's talk about Bethpage in itself. Like, for starters, what a good-looking golf course. Big variety on it. But the biggest thing that actually let it down is the fact that it's renowned for being one of the toughest golf courses in the world. We are back. I have to apologise for that one because we ran out of battery. And it shows you that I'm a novice in creating videos and using content. Please make sure that your batteries are charged. So yeah, Bethpage, obviously very well known for being a very tough golf course. There's the warning. This golf course is tough and is only for experienced golfers. But the setup that the American team went was quite traditional in their own sense for Ryder Cup settings. Very low cut fairway, rough and second cut, so it wasn't really a penalty if you went into the rough. Greens were trying to go fast. I've seen a lot of comments at the fact that they were trying to do it faster and firmer, but they had some rain, and I think the setup was a bit too soft. So it was sort of a weakened Bethpage black, and I think that sort of started the week in a sort of weird fashion in a sense, because it was sort of geared up to be like the toughest crowd at America's tough course. And yeah, it wasn't exactly that. The greens, obviously, as you know, were super soft, and guys actually couldn't really control their ball on the greens, and in some way it was actually better to be in the rough, because they could control it and there would be a little bit less spin coming from it. If you don't know Bethpage, big municipal state park or state golf area in Long Island, Farmington, New York, and is open for everyone. If you're in Scotland, a very similar example would be, not in the same sort of sense as St Andrews, because it's owned by the state, it's owned by the government. St Andrews is, to an extent, it's owned by the town council, but it's privately run. A more similar thing would be, if you're from Aberdeen, would be like King's Links or Hazelhead Park. And there's a few other ones in Edinburgh, I can't really remember. There used to be two in Dundee, Camperdown and Caird Park. But alas, they have gone to the jungle, which is actually frustrating, and that could be another topic of conversation in another video. But it's really good that Bethpage have these sort of municipal golf courses that anybody just turns up, pays and plays, and particularly the black course is a hot one for people turning up days in advance to try and get in the ballot, to try and get a tee time. So in a weird way, New York, America's one of the biggest cities, or the headline city, at the municipal course, or the main municipal course of New York, it was built up to be this big massive thing, and the actual US team even fed into that. And I think it's funny, we used to, when Keegan Bradley came in as the captain, it was obviously a strange choice at first glance, but the more I've got into the build-up in the last 2 weeks of the event, it actually, in a weird way, made sense, because he went to the University at St John's, which is in New York, in Long Island, and the golf team would play at Bethpage. So he knew the golf course well, he knew the people around it well, he knew about the setup. Obviously, he had his Netflix documentary, and in a weird way, he's been given a sort of sympathy vote by here's the captaincy. But because of that, I think that's one of the few reasons why he got the job. Also in the mix that Tiger Woods turned it down. But in hindsight, it does look poor choice, because, well, he was up against experience, and Luke Donald has been phenomenal for the last 2.5 years, if you're a European golf fan. I saw one of them, you've probably already seen it, the poor decision of pairing Morikawa and Harris English out together. Out of data analysis, it was 132nd out of 132nd combinations for the US team. It was the worst combination for pairs and foursomes, and yeah, Bradley put them out, and behold, they got beat. And it's a bit of a weird one with America, because you always feel like Europe are firing on all cylinders going into everyone, and it feels, as a European looking in, it looks like they're not firing or clicking all cogs of the gears at the same time. The last time that happened, obviously, was in 2021, and we were a little bit worried. It was like, yes, this could be tough for the next few years. Then Liv came in, and it's sort of fallen away, and they've just sort of ripped up the rule book, so to speak, and they've went away from their success stories. And I had a little look up at the sort of wins. I know in my lifetime Europe have won quite a lot. I didn't know how much it was. 10 out of the last 13 Europe have won, so evidently we have a good system in place and good people around it that's run by the DP World Tour, formerly the European Tour, and ex-captains are involved, data analysis is involved, Eduardo Molinari with his data analysis for players, they do profiles. There's a whole system, there's a whole process that goes into picking the right people for the European team, creating the environment that everybody wants to buy into, and succession for both future Ryder Cups, but also pairings currently and also in the future. And it really showed with the comparisons between the 2023 and the 2025 Ryder Cups, where our pairings have, some were the same, but some were also slightly different and changed up. But it felt like no matter who you paired with, on the whole, on the first 2 days, it sort of slotted in quite nicely. Moving back to the US, obviously I said that there's only 3 in the last 15 runnings of this event that they have won, and their captains have been Paul Azinger, Steve Stricker and Davis Love III. All veterans on the sort of tail end of their pro career, moving into the seniors or have already done so, and they've been vice captains before. After the 2010 and the 2012 Ryder Cup, they obviously had their task force, and they were trying to put in a system in place. That there was all this big news about it. And then in particular after the 2014 Ryder Cup, that they, rather than having this big name, which they had Tom Watson at Glen Eagles, they put in a group together to try and see a formula to bed forward, and it obviously bared fruit in 2016. They lost the 2018 one at Paris, which was away for them, and then they won 2021, which was obviously the COVID Ryder Cup. It feels like they've just completely chucked that out. But the other thing that I've started to understand while listening to tons of podcasts and media is that it's not the PGA Tour that run the USA team, it's actually the PGA of America. And I saw an article and an interview of Paul McGinley talking about it, where he doesn't understand why the PGA Tour have a bigger say in this, because all of the players obviously play on the PGA Tour. Our European players play, yes, also on the PGA Tour, but also on the European Tour, the DP World Tour. So all the people that run this sort of background stuff run the Ryder Cup European team. And he doesn't understand, and after listening to that, for me, I sort of agree with him. I don't understand why the PGA Tour take more of a running in it. Like, I mean the logistics, the people that run the transport, I mean the people that do all the booking of the hotels, the traffic management, the planning, the social media, the marketing, the correspondence to families, agents, players, caddies, all the coordination stuff behind the scenes, which is done on the PGA Tour because they all play in there, is not done by them. It's all done by the PGA of America. And the captain is voted in by committee. So Paul was talking about the European Tour and saying that it's all the same people that are doing the background stuff, so it's all familiar. Whereas the US team coming into it, it's not necessarily familiar because, well, the PGA America run one big event throughout the year that I know of, and that is the PGA Championship in May, the major, the fourth major. So the USA team don't really know all the people behind that, and actually you can probably see that in the sense of the USA Ryder Cup channel and the European Ryder Cup channel. There's a lot more high quality content from the creative team in the DP World Tour, the Ryder Cup European Tour, coming out for us. Whereas the American team, and it might be partly because I live in Europe, so I see more of the feed, but American stuff, it doesn't seem as in-depth as what we get on our side of the pond. The other thing that Paul talks about is the process that there's always sort of like feedback after a Ryder Cup and seeing what we can do to improve to move forward. And he said a couple of years ago, they were talking about, there was the Seve Trophy, and it was like a team cup because the Ryder Cup is every 2 years. Now there used to be the Seve Cup, then they got rid of that, but they've brought it back as the Team Cup. And it was a way to try and prepare the DP World Tour players that are new and also to try out captains. That's held in England every year. And it's sort of a bridging point to try and introduce people into the routine, into the runnings, to then there's a pathway up to the Ryder Cup. Now, the Americans actually already have that in the sense of they've got the President's Cup every odd year, or every even year, I should say, rather than every odd year that the Ryder Cup is now. Now, that's run by the PGA Tour. So you would think that there would be this sort of communication from both groups, that there was a feeding of players into the President's Cup, vice captains, captains, and then that all moves into the Ryder Cup team. Then you become vice captain, and then you become captain of the team, and it's the same for players as well. If both competitions were run by the same people, and also logistics-wise, there would be a familiarity, and they would have it every year that could grow into feeding this USA Ryder Cup team. But for some reason, this links are not connecting for the USA team, and it's reflecting by the results that we're seeing. I mean, this shouldn't have happened in terms of for the USA team. Like, Europe come to New York and outplaying them in almost every department in the first 2 days. Phenomenal for us. I've loved it. But in terms of a competition, it's feeling very one-sided at the moment, and ways to improve it would be just that, connecting the PGA Tour into this, and maybe even the PGA Tour actually running the whole thing and having both the President's Cup and the Ryder Cup as sort of one subgroup together. When you listen to interviews, like I've listened to an interview of Jim Furyk today, and it sounds so complicated. It's done by committee, the voting systems for Ryder Cup, and I very much doubt that's what happens for us. I feel like it's probably vice captains have a big say. That might be a committee in that sense. But informal inquiries would be put out, and everybody will already be in the system. Like Luke was a vice captain previously, so he already knew the situation. To put Keegan into the circumstance that he was in, never been a Ryder Cup vice captain. Last time he was involved in the Ryder Cup as a player was 2014. And the only thing that he was actually qualified him to do it was either at being known in Bethpage and passionate from the Netflix documentary. It's not the same thing, and they need a bit of coherence to bring this forward, move the competition forward, and keep it growing and keep it more competitive. There was obviously the issue about Hovland on the Sunday, where for those who don't know, he got injured. Oh, sorry, just bashed the mic. For those who don't know it, Hovland got injured on the Saturday afternoon. He was supposed to be playing the Saturday afternoon. He got swapped out for Tyrrell Hatton. And on the Sunday, he tried to get ready, but alas didn't materialise. So one of the rules of the Ryder Cup is if somebody gets injured for the Sunday, you can put an envelope in with a player of the other team's names that would be drawn out for the playings, and the match would be put down as a half in gesture of goodwill. Keegan came out, he didn't enjoy it, thought the rule needs to change. This has been a rule for the 70s, and I've seen pros and cons against it. The one thing that I haven't actually seen is we've got vice captains there. They're all pro golfers. Why do we not put in a sub vice captain to continue the competition? Because if it came down to the Sunday and there was actually a half point and we had won it by a half point, it would be an utter mutiny, being honest. And Alex Norton has just won at Wentworth. Why not chuck him in against Harris English as the last player? He's a professional golfer, and it keeps the spectacle high. It provides intrigue. The fact, has he practiced this whole week, but also he's on form. It's another pro golfer, and what will happen with that? And it keeps it a level playing field. I know it's a suggestion, it's something I've thought about, and likelihood of it happening, probably not, but yeah, it feels, if that came down to a half point, it would have been a bit of a nightmare. Moving forward, captains. Obviously we've had Luke for the last 2.5 years, it's been phenomenal, and he's done such a good job, and it feels weird that he's just sort of gracefully come in. And one of the most graceful things I got sent was a friend sent me a video of Luke with the Ryder Cup on the official Ryder Cup European page, and they were all singing on that Sunday night, happy birthday to Tommy Fleetwood's son Frankie, because it was his birthday. And you're just going, this is mental. He's captain holding it, and the whole families, the caddies, the players, they're all singing, and you can just see that there's this bond between Luke, the players. They're all one together. But, and there's this rumours that he might do it again. I don't think he'll do it again. You leave out on a high. He's won away from home. He's undefeated. He's went back to back. I can't see how he would get personally motivated for the next one in Ireland. The only way I can see it is if he thought, I could be the first person to do back to back to back. But the amount of stuff that he's probably had to go through in the last 3-4 years, contacting agents, contacting players, contacting captains, previous and vice captains, contacting the DP World Tour, and then when it was at home, it was all the course set up, meals for the week, planning events, signatory events. I used to go and speak. It's a hell of a lot of job, and it's a hell of a lot of, what's the word? Corporate schmoozing. I'll go with that. And as much as I would love him to do it, I also think I think the best thing for him would be to do is to just move on, and Europe moves on with love in their heart for all and gratitude for all what he's brought to the team. So then, future European captains, who we're going for? It's there's obviously the big names that you would want to bring back from Liv. You would also think about the ones from Ireland. So the Liv ones, obviously we've got Lee Westwood, Ian Poulter are the two mainstays. Sergio Garcia. The Liv Divide, obviously there was Stenson was supposed to be in it a few years ago before Luke sort of came in. And there was that big rift. It feels like the rift is sort of mellowed a bit. It's still there, but as you can see, Tyrrell got in automatically, but John was a captain's pick. So maybe in 2 years' time, or maybe in 6 months' time when we name the next Ryder Cup captain, maybe that has moved on. I can also see somebody like Paul McGinley wanting to try and do it because it's in Ireland. He's been advertising it for years since it's been announced. He's been Golf Ireland tourism guy. There's been programmes on Sky Sports about him golfing around Ireland, and one of the main ones has been in Adair, at Adair Manor, looking at the golf course, taking the Ryder Cup to it. Maybe he's fancying it to come back. And there's this big onus on Team Europe of not necessarily finding what previously has been this ceremonial role of, you've had a phenomenal career, you can now be captain for the Ryder Cup team, as a sort of badge of honour. Whereas now it's, who is the right person for leading, who is the right person for the job, and the job is to win the Ryder Cup. And perfect examples are Paul McGinley, Thomas Bjorn, and most recently Luke. Yes, they've had good professional careers, but not in the same stratosphere as some of the big names from America. But they've managed to bind a team together and coach a team as one, and had a system in place to drive success. And yeah, maybe Paul McGinley might be the ideal one. In Ireland, come back again. Maybe Podrick might fancy it again. However, obviously didn't work out in 2021 for him. Who knows? The other ones that I could think of, Sergio would be massive if we got him back into the fold. Obviously the most successful Ryder Cup points earner for Europe. But, I mean, 2 years, he probably would rather be aiming for Barcelona, obviously in Spain, his home country. That would be massive, having Sergio as the captain for that one. Other ones that I actually haven't heard, but both have been vice captains, Eduardo and Frankie Molinari. I think both of them would be potentially ideal, particularly Eduardo. Eduardo, by the sounds of it, has been the brains behind the whole operations. I mean, Eduardo, if he is the brains, he's seen Ryder Cup leaders happen before it with his expert advice. Well, if he's the brains behind the operation, maybe he's the guy to take us forward. And what better? If he's seen it happen, he's part of the system, he's part of the process. That might be the next person to do the job. Or maybe they do it together. One's the spokesperson, one's the brains, as brothers. That'd be phenomenal in Ireland. Passionate atmosphere. And there's probably a little part of it, and I'm maybe looking into it too politically. I know there's been mentions of Justin Rose going for it. An Englishman in the west coast of Ireland, not too sure about that one. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. The biggest one, obviously, is the USA captain. Where do they go from? Now, there's obviously a massive one in the fold. There's obviously Tiger to potentially take the mantle. And potentially that might be the right option for him. Apparently he's very close with JP, who owns Adair. He's attended the Pro-Am there a few times. I mean, they need a saviour, and well, maybe Tiger needs to be the one again. And let's be brutally honest, he's not coming back to make a full-time PGA Tour playing schedule. So he could devote his time to it, and he could. One of the biggest statements would be making the USA team come back to win away from home, and they haven't done it. I think it's since 1993. So that would be a massive statement, and if he did it in Ireland, but also back in the US in what would be 4 years' time from today, 2025, That'll be a massive thing, and potentially he's the guy that would be knowing the stats. You'd get the right people around him, and the thing is, nobody is going to say no to Tiger because he's Tiger. He's already had success as a captain in the President's Cup. I think it was 2019 in Royal Melbourne. But there's probably a few others that you could bring it back at. You could probably bring back in Steve Stricker. He's the last successful one after them ripping up the books. But it feels like there's a bigger situation at play in the USA team for them to get an actual system that they stick to, rather than just going from the hip. This is the guy that we need. Feels like they need to get this much more coherent system, including PGA Tour, including the President's Cup, including people in the process of selecting the captain, data analysis. The whole thing needs to feel like it's coming. Moving on. And I'm going to end it with this one, and it's future Ryder Cup venues for in Europe. And I actually focus on in the UK. The next one, as I've said, is in Adair Manor in Ireland. Then there's Barcelona as our next home one, which is in 2031. But there's a big emphasis of trying to get the Ryder Cup back to the UK, particularly in some England venues. There's been 4 trying to bid for future ones. There's Holton Park outside Bolton. There's been this massive bid of a golf complex with the aim of hosting the 2035 Ryder Cup. There's been Luton Hoo Estate in Bedfordshire. Plans, yet again, submit for a championship level with hope of hosting the Ryder Cup. The Belfry, which obviously has hosted it, is it 4 or 5 times? To have massive changes, improvements. It's obviously been hosting the British Masters most recently. There's been improvements on the hotel. It's close to Birmingham. There's good things about, and a bit of nostalgia bringing back to Belfry. And then there's also London Golf Club in Kent has applied to try and get the competition to their golf club as well. Now the biggest thing as a Scotsman since 2014, you can see the massive amount of changes, and this grand scale has increased in this competition. When it was at Gleneagles on telly, there was a few grandstands, and Gleneagles has the luxury of having a massive hotel. It could host a lot of people. Audience would be able to drive there, and there was the train station. There's a massive change in terms of numbers going to this competition now. It's also like the majors in a sense. When, for example, in Muirfield in 2013, the Open had, I think it's around about 140,000 for the whole week. Fair play. When it was at St Andrews a couple of years ago, it was up to about 270,000. So it almost doubled in 10 years, which is nuts. And Ryder Cup is sort of going through the same process as well. Corporations are banking in on money, profits, tons of merch, VIP hospitality, VIP grandstands. Ticket prices for the Ryder Cup at Bethpage were $750. It's nuts. But there was also the reason why they did that was because they were more on the onus of trying to stop tickets just being sold cheap and then going straight onto the black market. So if they put them at $250, it might have sold for $1,100. Whereas if they pitched it sort of in the middle, that was their argument. But it's also, you can see the profiteering from this. And the thing is, it comes around once a year. Once every 2 years. So, I mean, in the capitalistic society that we're in, like, I would love to argue with it because it's ridiculous. You shouldn't, for golf competition, it shouldn't be that expensive. But people are willing to pay the money for this. What do you do? So, yeah, like, importance of venues. And as you can see, most recently we've had Paris as a place, major city, major airport, lots of hotel rooms and transport, public transport. We've then went to Wisconsin, Madison and Milwaukee, close to these cities. In Wisconsin for Whistling Straits, yeah, again, decent public transport and major cities close by. Then we've went to Rome, albeit 40 minutes out of Rome, but yeah, again, massive city, major international airport, tons of accommodation, tourist city, infrastructure's already there. And now we went to New York, the Big Apple. Yeah, again, massive airport, massive transport links. However, I've seen lots of stuff, particularly with Peter Finch, talking about the infrastructure and roads to try and get to the venue at Bethpage was a nightmare. Shows you the amount of people that are wanting to go. So if it were to come back to the UK, it would have to be somewhere where it's reasonably close to a major international airport, massive infrastructure in terms of hotels, because we're going to need hotels for all the players, all the staff, all the corporations that are wanting to be at this thing. And also spectators, where are they going? Is there going to be tenting, camping villages? Where's everybody parking their cars? Is there going to be buses? There's so much logistical stuff now for this event. It really narrows the options. And the perfect example as a comparison would be Turnberry for the Open. Yes, forget about the political aspects to it because of Trump in the presidency, but Turnberry, superb golf course. It's got the hotel for players, but it's in the middle of nowhere. The closest train station is like 20 miles away. There's only one road in and there's one road out. There is no hotel apart from the Trump Hotel. There's Maiden's, a little village just down the road. It's not near a major city where the amount of hotel rooms, the amount of transportation, the amount of space and just infrastructure required to get people to the venue. Turnberry's a non-starter at the moment. So, brings us back to the 4 ones in England. And I think they'll probably take it to England in the next home one. So we've currently got Ireland, Barcelona, then I think there's a gap after that, and it's England. We've got, as I said, Hulton, which is outside Bolton, so it's pretty close to Manchester and Liverpool. We've got Luton Hoo in Bedfordshire, close to London, Belfry, close to Birmingham, and then London Golf Club. It's in the name. But I was also thinking even closer to home, Scotland. Where could we have it? Now, I know we've had it in Glen Eagles, but where else could we have a Ryder Cup that would just be spectacular as a great backstop for a venue? And yeah, Glen Eagles again would be phenomenal. It's also got the hotel, there's the train station just down the road, right beside the major road, the A9, within an hour's drive from Edinburgh Airport. I mean, it makes sense. If it were to come back to Scotland, it would make sense to go back to Glen Eagles. Just because the infrastructure, we know it's able to do it, and there's the extra space in terms of the golf courses, the Kings and the Queens, to put infrastructure in terms of tents and all that sort of stuff there. But if there was other places, I was thinking, where could we take it? Now, obviously we could take it to a links course, but I don't think the Ryder Cup necessarily nowadays tends itself to being at a links venue. So I was trying to exclude that. But somewhere in Fife could potentially be ideal. It would be amazing to take it to St Andrews, but not the old course. I mean, there's tons of other good golf courses potentially able to take it on. Obviously, this week, as I'm recording, we've got the Alfred Dunhill Links on, and it's hosted at St Andrews, but it's also hosted at Kings Barnes, and Carnoustie is the other satellite golf courses. Carnoustie or Kings Barnes would be phenomenal as a golf course for the Ryder Cup, particularly Kings Barnes, I think. Lots of risk reward throughout that. However, it's links. But infrastructure is there in the sense of St Andrews is just down the road. All the hotels there could be used. One hotel's the European team, one hotel's the USA team. The rest, take your pick. And obviously you've got St Andrews, the town itself. Railway station at Lookers. I mean, yes, there would be a little bit of a nightmare for getting people to the venue on the road from St Andrews to Kings Barnes. However, it could be done. It could be done. Other ones I was thinking was you've got the Dukes at St Andrews. Not the best of golf courses, but you could certainly upgrade it. And yet again, all the infrastructure we've got is in St Andrews. Fairmont St Andrews as well, a little bit different. More Americanized links. There's 2 links courses there, so you could use one or make a hybrid, and also at the same time it's both championship standard. You could make a hybrid between the 2 courses and use the rest of the space for infrastructure. It's not a members club, so you could be able to do it in a sense. Other one that's reasonably new is Dumbarnie. Dumbarnie would be a phenomenal track to do the Ryder Cup on. Tons of room, tons of acres. There's Leven and there's London Links. Both have train stations. Just Leven has got a train station. Recently opened, just a few miles down the road. Yes, there's only one road in. However, people could be staying in St Andrews, Ely, Cooper, Leven, Glenrothes if you're cheap. There's options there, and it would be a phenomenal backdrop for looking over to Edinburgh and over onto the Lothian coast. Lothians, you could potentially got Archer Field. I know Renaissance is already used, but these are all links. The one place that isn't links that would be phenomenal to host the Ryder Cup would be Loch Lomond Golf Club. How phenomenal would it be at Loch Lomond Golf Club? Already hosted the Scottish Open back in the day, which was called the Barclays Scottish Open in the early 2000s and 90s. Inland, backdrop of Loch Lomond, you've got the golf club, but you've also got Cameron House, the Carrick, Balloch, Helensburgh just along the road in terms of got train station, and Glasgow is about half an hour drives away, or certainly the airport is a half an hour drive away. The biggest hurdle would be to try and get infrastructure people there, because there's only sort of one road past it. Would people need to drive into Balloch and would Balloch need to be just completely shut down for the week that the tournament's hosted? Potentially. But what a venue that would be. Obviously ultra exclusive, but super scenic. It's hosted, yes, the competitions, it's had grandstands before, not on the same scale as the Ryder Cup, but might be a bit squish and squeeze, but it would be a phenomenal place and spectacular visually to look at. Only other place that potentially could be used, not necessarily in Scotland, moving back to England again, that I think would be really interesting, and the same sort of grand old scale, and thinking big major city, is yes, taking it to London, and the biggest place at the moment, and it's the host of the DP World Tour and the BMW Championship, would be Wentworth. Taking it to Wentworth. Surely one of the years you take the BMW Championship to somewhere else, like the Belfry, like Gleneagles, like Woburn or Sunningdale, take it somewhere else for a year, but have Wentworth as the host of the Ryder Cup in London, Obviously, you've got all the hotels, transportation, infrastructure. It already hosts a major competition. Golf course would need minimal upgrading. Yeah, there's some very good options right there for us to sort of showcase British golf, because, well, the last one was, yeah, Glen Eagles. It's not even the best golf course at the site of Glen Eagles. Kings and Queens are probably better golf courses, but what a spectacle it would be to have it in one of these major cities. Glasgow, Edinburgh, London, Manchester. It would be, that's what I feel like the Ryder Cup is doing these days. It's going to major cities with major infrastructure to showcase, yes, the city, but also the event needs to be held infrastructurally as well. So that's where we've got to. I'm gutted that it's over. It's always a massive build-up, the Ryder Cup, like debatably too long. But once you're in it, you're absolutely hooked. But also at the same time, in a weird way, I don't want it. There's always these talk of, let's do it every year. I think it being every 2 years keeps it as special. It keeps the intrigue, it keeps the mystique, it keeps the pleasure and the honour that you're representing your country or your continent, in our case. It keeps that sort of specialness, if that is such a phrase, that it keeps us enticed, that we want more. And I think that's the best place to keep it as. Once every 4 years on home soil within the continent, every two years as a competition home and away. I think it's a phenomenal competition. I'm already looking forward to Adair Manor. I'm already looking forward to hopefully coming back to Scotland in my lifetime and being able to go to it, because I didn't go to it in Glen Eagles when I was in 2014. I wish I did. And yeah, excited where the Ryder Cup goes from now on. Hope you've enjoyed my golf related content on this one. You might find me on Twitter, which is Jack_G_Christie. And sorry, no, that's my Instagram. It's Jack_Christie_. If you've seen any of this, or comment under this, and it'd be interesting to see what you think. Now, for any eagle-eyed viewers, you're probably looking at this photo directly behind me. You're probably thinking, where am I? This is actually my flat. I actually got keys for it a couple of weeks ago. Super excited and just getting used to it, and in a weird way it's given me this sort of creative sort of like movement forward and a bit of confidence to just go for it. So me doing this video and doing a few other videos, like, I probably will make mistakes along the way, but I'm seeing if I like it. I'm seeing if I just feel me. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. This photo behind me is actually a picture of the layout of Curtis Tee. So I thought, a little bit of a golf fan. It's currently on the floor. I could put it to good use and put it on my window in the background. If you're watching this, thank you very much for listening, and we will see you in the next video. Cheers.